as that. Also, people usually present only the highs, only the ups in their lives, only the highlights, literally reels. Reels. That's what they are. They're the best times, the best moments within a certain set of footage. That's what it is. So we have to be very mindful that people do not capture what is real, but they capture what they want you to see. Hello, lifters and listeners. Welcome back to the Lift Her Up podcast. I am your host, Latrice. Thank you guys for tuning in today on this new season. Happy New Year again. I just want to say thank you all for continuing to support me in this journey, in this podcast. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button if you're over on YouTube and hit that thumbs up, that notification bell, just so you can know when I'm doing new videos and all the things, right? I have also created an email list just so those who want to stay a bit more connected with our community and with me and any new things that we have coming up in the podcast and any ongoing challenges or anything like that I have to release. So make sure that you sign up for the email list if you want to be the first in the know. That is in the description. So let us get into today's episode. So again, it is a new year, but if you have been watching the channel for a while, then you know I've been doing this fear series, and I haven't done an episode on fear in a minute, but I'm not done with fear. We're not done talking about fear yet. It still needs to be addressed. God is not done talking about fear, and as long as it continues to exist in our lives and it continues to weigh on the hearts and minds of God's daughters, then I'm gonna talk about it because he's not done talking about it. I'm gonna keep on talking about it. So fear will probably be a topic of discussion ongoing for the channel, just because it's something that I've dealt with a lot in my life, and I know that those in my community also deal with it as well. It's very relevant for all of us as we are journeying in our purpose with God, and it needs to be talked about and it needs to be dealt with. And sometimes we don't realize how deep fear can run, which has been the most illuminating part for me in this whole journey, because God has been showing me the different layers of fear. We think that it's one thing, but really deep down, it's something completely different. It has roots to it. It has layers. And it really impacts our decision making and our mindset. So the Lord heavily wants to deal with fear with us for this year. There's levels to it. And there is a specific type of fear that I wanted to address in this episode that I see prevalent in my life and the lives of a lot of other believers too. And that is the fear of missing out, also known as FOMO. Yeah, FOMO. And we got to talk about this because it is an epidemic in the body of Christ, but there are symptoms to it that usually go overlooked, unnoticed. People present as asymptomatic, all the things. And sometimes fear of missing out can look like one thing, but it's actually something completely different the way I'm going to describe it. So it's not just you see a reel of your friends hanging out and you wish you were there. It goes deeper than that. It goes deeper than that. So hear this out. Have you ever gotten to a point in your journey where you feel like God is silent, or you feel like your life is at a plateau? It's not really going anywhere, but you're doing all the things, right? Like you're doing all the things you know to do. You're doing all the things that God told you to do. You're praying, you're fasting, you're studying, you're working. You're not just sitting, you're actively doing the things. And yet it still feels like your life is going nowhere. It doesn't feel like it's going backwards. It just feels like it's going slowly, steadily. And you might be scrolling on the Instagram or TikTok or whatever, and you see a classmate or a friend or someone that operates in a similar gift as you or a similar business as you or whatever, whatnot. They have something that you want. They have accomplished something that you want to accomplish, and they're excelling in the same area that you've been praying about, right? And you've been asking God for this very thing, and here they go. You see it on their page. It could have been something that maybe the Lord even asked you to set down and put down for a season. I know plenty of people who have had to leave their businesses, who have had to shut down their businesses because God said, hey, not in this season. But then you may see somebody and their business is flourishing, right? Like they're selling maybe similar products that you sell, or they're doing something similar to you. And God told you to take a beat, take a rest, whatever it is. Not now. You're in a not now season, not yet. And the thoughts that may come up when you see something like that is, well, Lord, why is it working for them and it's not working for me? And we do this a lot with non-believers. Don't let it be a non-believer, right? Because then we really like, okay, Lord, they not even looking out for you. Like they're not even checking for you at all. They not living life for you at all. And yet it seems as though they are getting blessed and I'm not. What's good? What's up? And that is a fear of missing out. That is FOMO in full effect, in its full effect. And we all have those thoughts at some point. We are only human, right? But I want to get down to the belief, the underlying belief, which is God is holding out on me. Like he isn't blessing me. He doesn't want to bless me. Has he forgotten about me while he's in the midst of blessing other people? And also God hasn't given me enough to be where I desire to be. Those are all thoughts and beliefs that can feed into that fear of missing out. And that can be dangerous. That can be very dangerous because it leads us to focus on what others have and what we don't have. And at times we can begin to idolize those things. And that is why social media can be so powerful, because it leads to this sort of perception idolization that goes on that absolutely needs to be addressed. And I'll call it perception idolization because that is the idolizing that we have of a perception, really, and the idea of a person's life. It's not real, but our perception makes it feel as if it is real. And this runs rampant everywhere. This is how the rich and famous and in Hollywood, this is how they make their money, right? Like if they can give the perception that they have wealth and prosperity and happiness, then they can get people to believe consuming a certain product, watching a certain movie, getting this thing, being connected to this person, that equates to wealth, happiness, and prosperity. But what we don't realize is that perception that we're being fed of them is oftentimes a lie. It's oftentimes an illusion tool that is only meant to have us buy into this false reality. And because we buy into the perception, that leads to emptiness because it's not real. Perception is not reality. Versus if we were to buy into something that was true and that was real, you could lead to transformation. But that's oftentimes not what happens. Social media, again, leads us a lot to this sense of FOMO, and we got to stop it because social media is meant for us to be social, but it never paints the full picture, right? We have filters, you can cut, you can edit, you can crop, Photoshop, like all the things to adjust to the liking of the presenter. So if I want to make it seem as though I'm living this amazing, luxurious life of peace and fulfillment and happiness, then I'm gonna dress it up as that. I'm going to dress it up as that, especially if I want people to buy a product based off the facade. that I have on my online presence, then of course people are going to show up as that. Also, people usually present only the highs, only the ups in their lives, only the highlights, literally reels. Reels. That's what they are. They're the best times, the best moments within a certain set of footage. That's what it is. So we have to be very mindful that people do not capture what is real, but they capture what they want you to see. And as I was thinking about this episode, I was heavily stuck on perception and dreams as I was thinking about fear of missing out. And I was thinking about my life and what that looked like for me. And I believe it's because many of us have idolized our perceptions. We have idolized our dreams and we placed it in the seat where God should be. And we allow them to reign over our lives instead of allowing God to do that. And the Lord is a gentleman, like he's not going to force nothing to get out of his seat. No, we have to lay those things down and we have to surrender it, whatever it may be. So we have to evaluate, am I allowing my perception and my dreams to reign? Are they driving my feelings? Are they driving up my fears? Which most likely they are, because we see this person doing this, that person doing that, and we get in our heads like, well, am I doing the wrong thing? Should I be doing what they're doing? Like, what, maybe I should stop doing this and then just get on that train because it's getting results for them. It's getting results for them. Maybe I should, maybe. And the Lord is like, hello, like, I'm here. Please, can you stop focusing on what's happening for other people and just stay the course, because I have something different for you, made just for you. Your journey is not going to be like everyone else's. And the quicker we come to terms with that, the quicker we can get over this FOMO, this fear of missing out, because God has something different preserved for each and every one of us. We're all different. We are mapped differently. But even when in those times where God tells us, hey, I have something different for you, do we really believe him when he says it? Oftentimes not. Many of us is be like, okay, Lord, yeah, all right. And then we try to go on and we do our own thing. And it made me think about Sarah in the Bible. And many of us are like Sarah when after God told her and Abraham that they would conceive a son. And she laughed, right? She laughed because her perception at the time, her age, my window has closed. Everyone else in society at this point has, I don't even know, many children, generations of children probably at this time. And she's like, oh yeah, right. Like, okay, God. And laughed. And that's like many of us, we laugh when God gives us the promise because of perception. Our perception is not reality, and it's definitely not God's reality. We have to allow God to shake up our perception. We have to, or else we'll just be stuck in our fears. We'll be stuck in our fears and our disbelief for an extended period of time. So we have to ask, is it really God holding back from us? Is it truly that? Or is it my perception making me believe that he's holding something back from me? Is it feeding into the fear I have of being too old to do this, of not being ready enough to do that? Like, is it feeding into those fears? And also thinking about Sarah's story, we can't forget that perception she had, that fear of missing out she had her move outside the will of God. And so she had to compromise, which then produced an illegitimate heir. Like, that's the story. That's the story in Genesis. So go read for details, Genesis 16-18. But we have to ask, are we seeking illegitimate ways to try to get a God destiny? Because it don't work like that. We have to do it his way. We have to do it his way. We can't produce God's destiny, what he has for us, in an illegitimate manner, because God is a God of principles and laws, and those things have to be abided by. They have to be. We have to obey, regardless of however we may feel. Or are we going to be like Sarah and be like, well, God's withheld it from me, so, like, I'm just going to go and get it myself. I don't really care which avenue I take. This is what the world is telling me I should do. And honestly, my feelings are aligned with that. I'm in agreement with what the world is saying, like, because everybody else around me has babies, or their babies have babies now. And so, like, I'm going to just go ahead and sleep with the maidservant. So then at least I can start my own family. At least I can have it, just because God has withheld that from me. Is that like many of us? Is that like us? And we have to change the narrative of that, because again, disobedience, illegitimate error, it made things harder than what it had to be. If only she had just waited and believed a bit longer, so we have to change the narrative. We have to shift the narrative. God is not holding out on you. God is not holding out on me. What he is doing is he is gifting me and you with patience and endurance. We have to start flipping the script like that. The only thing that we'll be missing out on is the beauty of our journeys and God perfecting things within us so that we can continue to focus on what he has in store for us. And the longer we continue to shift our minds to what everybody else is doing, what's happening for everyone else, then we can miss what God is doing in us, pretty much. So instead of having fear that God isn't going to give you what you need, that he isn't going to provide for you, that he isn't going to meet your desires, maybe you need to think about what your desires are first. Because scripture says, if you delight yourself in the Lord, he will give you the desires of your heart. That first part, if you delight in the Lord. So that means if you delight in him, then he will align your desires to his. Okay. So that's the first thing. If you're delighting in God and your desires match with his will, then that means you have to be trusting in his timing. You have to allow the time to be a faith building time for you, because you are trusting his timing, which is perfect. Also, God's timing is not compatible with human perception. It never was, it never will be. Endless times in the Bible where he has literally shattered the human perception. That's why Jesus came. That's why Jesus came and died and resurrected, just for us, to shatter the perception that we had of God and of religion. Exactly why. So when you are in God's will, you cannot miss out on what has been promised, because God cannot lie. He cannot tell a lie. His promises are yes and amen. So again, reevaluate what your desires are so you can make sure your desires match up with God's desires. Submit those things to him. Surrender those things to him. He is not withholding anything from you. You're not missing out. You just have to have faith. That's what it takes. Faith. I'm really curious. Have any of you struggled with FOMO in any area of your life? It doesn't matter what it is, if it's business, romantic relationships, with friendships. I know a lot of people were waiting on those perfect godly friendships. I get it. Whether it's searching for spiritual counsel like a church, or maybe waiting for a home or a child or a marriage, or whatever it is, like a fear of missing out in general. I want to know if you've experienced that in your faith walk, and what has helped you stay grounded in God's timing, even when it felt like he was silent or when others were moving ahead. How did you maneuver? How are you maneuvering? Are you maneuvering? Like, let me know. Leave a comment. I want to talk about it. I'll meet you there in the comments. Please, I want to talk through it. I want to pray about it. All the things, okay? That wraps up this week's episode, you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, in this season, we are going to have faith and not fear, because God is not holding out on us. So there's nothing we need to be concerned about missing out on, because anything that was promised to us is guaranteed to work out in our favor. So I love you guys. Make sure again to leave a comment, like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, stay encouraged. Bye.